It's currently gusting and snowing where I am, so it feels pretty good to be back in Todos Santos. This is episode 6, and today we're going to be moving on from the other end of the island, and we're going to be kind of creating the entrance to this whole place, which of course is a beautiful interchange for this car-centric city. And I'm mostly joking there. I'm a big fan of interchanges, and building interchanges in this game is a lot of fun, and I think one of the best things about this modded game really is how interesting you can make and realistic and nice looking you can make these intersections. So I started off just kind of getting the basic idea where these roads are going to go. So what it is there's the two one-way roads that run all the way across the island and into the old town, which you saw me place a few episodes ago. And then those converge into a divided highway that crosses over the little strait there and over onto the mainland. And then there's this bridge that comes across from a little peninsula to the east of the big island, and then it kind of runs under one of the lanes here in the form of a little bit of a tunnel there, and meets up with the other road. So the interchange is kind of, you'll see me building it here, but we get a couple of cloverleaf ramps and a couple on ramps. There aren't any at grade intersections, which is kind of nice. I wanted this to be like, it's probably a little higher capacity than it has to be for the amount of traffic it handles, but I wanted it to be, something they'd build just to be sure that it could handle, all the tourists and stuff, and look fairly nice, so that it's, impressive to all the people visiting this part of the island, which most people who visit this city as tourists will come to the island to see the old town and other things that'll be here eventually. So it ends up being kind of I don't think it's a very standard interchange, but it's kind of a modified partial cloverleaf interchange, because it does have two cloverleaf ramps, and it has a few, I think 4 just standard on-off ramps. And it's not quite a Parklow though, because there aren't any at-grade interchanges, which I believe there are in Parklows. Just the way that the divided highway that comes across from the mainland splits into 2 one-way roads, and the other road kind of comes in at an angle. It just ends up being kind of a nice little variation on a Parklow. I planned this interchange out very heavily before I actually went into the game to build it. I just drew it out on paper, and I wanted it to be something kind of, I don't know if it's unique, but it's definitely different than most of the standard interchanges you'd see in this game and in real life. And this isn't really based on anything in particular. I just kind of wanted to work with the way I imagine the roads and try to make it into a functional and pretty cool looking interchange. One of the hardest things about building these Parklow or similar interchanges in this game is the cloverleaf ramps themselves, the ones that loop back around like this, because it's hard to, the way the roads create nodes and segments, it's hard to, especially without Move It, but with Move It helps, or having Move It helps, but it's still pretty tough to get the right height and figure out how much height you need to change in between each node, and then getting just the proper shape, because you can build something that's, it has 3 segments that are each, a 5x5 curve, and it'll look like crap from above. So that's definitely something, you build it, and then you can adjust it with Move It until it looks nice from above and, isn't too tiny, because too small of a cloverleaf on a fairly high-speed interchange is probably not a good idea. Even with proper signage and stuff like that, people are going to go flying off of it and die, and doesn't matter in City Skylines, but if you're trying to replicate the look of a real interchange, then you definitely want to make sure that you're ramps are the proper, length and are a little more sweeping than you might, that might be easy to build. And actually the hardest thing I think about this interchange was this off-ramp here. And as you can see now, it comes off at a pretty sharp angle from the bridge there. And yeah, it stays like that. I can't really find a way to fix that because I could do it. I could have the off-ramp start in the middle of the bridge over the river, the strait there. But I thought that might look kind of weird. Maybe I'll come back and fix that, because the more I think about it, the more I feel like that would look pretty cool and it would look more realistic, because right now you kind of have to slow down to 5 miles an hour to get off of it. Or if it were a real interchange, you'd have to. City Skylines drivers just kind of bank the curbs and drift a little bit, but that's cool. So now I'm really happy with this little thing here, this left exit, which there's no slip lane or anything. It just, the left lane turns into an exit. I think it looks just super smooth. And this on-ramp here too, it takes a long time to get used to building these kind of gentle curves and merging, merges especially with the vanilla roads. I know there are sets on the workshop that make them look a lot better. And those are definitely, I considered using those, but I just think the wide vanilla highways give a very standard kind of look to the American highway, and I think it works for this city. So yeah, I'm gonna keep rolling with those, at least for now. And I'm just kind of doing some terraforming and flattening things out. And now I guess we're not really detailing, but we're kind of making this bridge here with these cool bridge assets. Pretty simple. I don't really add too much detail here at this point. Most of this episode is just pure infrastructure, and that's really what I love to do in this game. So I'm pretty excited to get started on that, and we're going to do that for a couple episodes before we go back to some more focused building and detailing. And I wanted something kind of a little utilitarian here. We have that other bridge over there that comes from the mainland, and that's, a little nicer, probably a little older. And then this one wasn't built until maybe, I don't know, the 80s or the 90s, and they just needed the cheapest, most functional bridge that they could get to bridge this area, because eventually over on this little peninsula there's going to be, or at least I'm planning for there to be a tourist area, which there is in the real San Juan. That's another place I visited, and it's a pretty cool spot. So I just wanted to have this really utilitarian looking bridge. I don't think it looks bad or anything. It's just not quite as elegant or classical as the other one. And yeah, so I didn't imagine that there would really be boats coming in through this strait because it's really thin. Pretty much all the ship traffic is going to come around on the western side of the island, or of the main island where the old town is. It's going to kind of come around there and then go into the big bay there. And we're going to have a couple different port areas eventually, seaport that is. But that's going to be quite a while from now. There's going to be a small one on that there's a little, a little peninsula or something to the south of the old town. So we're going to do a little bit of a smaller, maybe more civilian use, or, not for big cargo ships, or not the big cruise ships or anything. We're going to have all of that in quite a while, but in a few episodes we're going to do that small peninsula area with some things. And there's going to be a ferry that a mass transit ferry that will take people across from this small island to the mainland over on the other side of the bay. And I mean, you can't really see any of this right now, but it'll all make sense when we do it. Maybe I'll show you guys an overview of the map at some point, just so I can kind of orient everybody. But for now, we're starting some detailing on the interchange. You saw me do some lighting, and now I'm doing some different crash barriers and jersey barriers and stuff. I don't know what the regulations are, what the standard practices are, but I tried to put the barriers in places where they made sense, so to separate opposing traffic when they're close together, or if there's a steep drop, or a relatively steep drop, and pretty much anywhere where if a car went off the road, it would be worse than just kind of ending up in a flat field somewhere. So I'm going to let you watch this for a little bit, and then I'll be back in just a couple minutes. So those crash barrier networks are just really helpful, I think, and I think they look pretty nice. There are a couple kind of things that aren't as nice about them, in that because of the way it like tiles, or I don't know what the term is, but I'll just call it tiling. The supports for like the barrier, like the things that go into the ground, change distance the distance between each other pretty frequently, based on how long the segment is, which doesn't look fantastic. I think it works fine. And another thing is you can't sink them into the ground or anything at the end, so you can't get where barriers like that, they kind of slope down into the ground at the end, which I think is a little safer than just like a flat end with a stripe marker on it, which is what I pretty much have to do here. So that's not perfect. I haven't tested to see if they work with the old, or if they're compatible with the old. I think it's a very old asset on the workshop. The props, the ground conforming or terrain conforming props. That guardrail set. I could try that. Maybe that would work. But I don't think I even have those in my collection right now, so I'd have to subscribe to that. And now we're doing some line work, and I don't know what it is about this, but this is one of my favorite things to do in the game. Not like the repetitive nature of like finding the spacing in prop line tool, but just I think it adds a lot of detail that you don't really get with at least the vanilla road textures. Even in a lot of the Roads United textures, you just don't get that. And it just helps to bridge these gaps here, like at the junctions, where the texture kind of changes and there aren't any lines or anything. You can do that. And then at intersections and merging lanes and exiting lanes, you can create separation between these, the different lanes. And I just think it adds a lot. You can see here I'm using one of these line decals, which I think are really useful and they're good to save on props, but I just find that I'm more used to using the prop line tool, and in some cases it feels more efficient, so I kind of just go with whatever. Usually if it's one straight line, I'll use or almost straight line, I'll use the line network. And if there's a lot of curving or weird shapes or something like that, I'll use prop line tool and use just a decal. So yeah, I do both, and I think they blend fine, especially from above. Sometimes it looks a little weird while I'm doing it, but I think it usually turns out pretty nicely. Here I'm just using these fantastic wear decals to it boosts the texture a little bit, and I think it also just helps to kind of blend everything together, especially again in the junction areas where it changes color and texture and removes all the lines and stuff. Some more barriers there, and now we're doing some signage. I love, there's this new set of props with a bunch of different names and stuff for freeway signs. I think it's, if you search F91 on the workshop, try that. I'm not sure, it's short for the guy's name, but yeah, look that up if you want signs like that. They're pretty new, I think, within the last few months, I think. So yeah, those are awesome. Some exit speed limit signs. That's something I always notice when I'm driving on, especially on cloverleaf loops, is they tell you to slow down maybe a little more than most people do, but and here I notice I put these, right here, I put these on the inside of the barrier there. That's not a good idea. I should have put them just like sticking up out of the barrier. I think that would have worked fine. And I think I mentioned this in the one of the Old Town episodes. Signs are just like the best way to add detail. To me, that's like the biggest thing to create this kind of immersive environment, is these signs, because they just have such a presence when you're down low. Now I'm adding some texture here with just the map theme and the natural resources. And I wanted this this interchange to be made to look a little bit wild, but it's all, I'm imagining that it's all manicured and taken care of and watered and everything. So you'd probably, almost always find a maintenance truck sitting somewhere around here. But I wanted them to, I'm sure the city would want to kind of show off the natural, the natural kind of forests that you'd find on the island. So they kind of are trying to replicate that in the interchange, and it just gives it, gives this big concrete and asphalt monstrosity a little bit of green space. It's not usable green space. I mean, you can't park here and get out and use it as a park, but it's at least, it adds something to the visuals for people who aren't nerds about interchanges like I am, and probably most of you guys are. So yeah, I think that's nice, and it adds a nice amount of detail. Adding some grass here just to finish it off. The grass texture on my theme it looks good, but it's a little bare, so yeah. And then we're just a couple of decals and some grass, and we're done. That's the episode. So thank you so much for watching this. Next episode, we're going to be doing a bit more infrastructure before we head back into some more detail-based things. So enjoy this comparison of before and after. I'm pretty happy with this. I came up with this a couple months ago. I know Strict Toaster's done this before. He's done that recently in Nidal. It's really cool, and so I hope you enjoy that. Enjoy the cinematics, and I will see you next week on Todos Santos. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you later.